All right, excellent afternoon to all those who are watching me across the states in Nigeria. They said the workers have no faith in politics, or will I say politicians, no faith in their labor because it is their sweat that is being given to them, or their entitlement to their wages. And their wages and welfare will always be a means of appreciation when it comes to labor. Again, I say happy Workers' Day. I know it was May 1st yesterday, hence the reason why I'm bringing such conversation to fall on May 2nd. And on this note, let me use this opportunity to welcome all those who are watching me now across the state. You're welcome to another interesting episode of Real Talk with Kike. I remain your convener and, of course, the chief host on this platform, Kike Atanda-Owo. And, of course, it's important for us to hear what on this day in history segment asks for us. I keep asking, I keep telling people, what legacy are you leaving behind? Let's hear what on this day has for us today. Stay with me, I'll be right back. All right, many thanks for staying with me. May 2nd, exactly 1994, Mandela signifies a lot to not only South Africans and Africans, but to the rest of the world as someone who stood against, racism, appetite, freedom of expression, democratic process, name it. And South Africa and Africa still enjoys his legacies till date. So great men for many generations to come will continually or will continue to appreciate Mandela for all the good works that he has done in terms of the kind of legacy that one should leave behind. On this note, I think it's important for us to get a message from my sponsors, those who have put me on this platform. When I return, we'll dive straight to the conversation. And stay with me, I'll be right back. Many thanks for staying with us. Yesterday, May 1st, was Workers' Day, or May Day as we call it. Many discussions have come to the fore when it comes to the rights or entitlement or rewards and welfare of workers who toil on daily basis to move our nation forward with productivity. And Lagos State government said it will implement any new national minimum wage agreeable to the government, labor unions, and other parties involved in the ongoing negotiation. And Governor Babajide Sanwo-Olu gave the assurance in response to the demands of the Nigerian Labour Congress, NLC, and Trade Union Congress, that's TUC, during the Workers' Day celebration held at the Bolaji Johnson Arena, Onikan, Lagos. If this can be said of Lagos State with regards to the betterment of the workers, what can be said of the entire federation? And can we say that enough has been done in many states on the plight and situation of workers across the country? On the live show today, we'll be looking at pressing concerns of the workers in Lagos State and Nigeria as a whole. Their welfare and wages will be placed in juxtaposition to their efforts and their outputs to discuss, from a stakeholder point of view, and of course on how to enhance their standard of living and working in an environment like this. And speaking of stakeholder, I have the NLC chairman for Lagos State on the show today. Ma'am, how are you doing today? Many thanks for joining me on the platform today. I'm talking about Comrade Funmi Sessi. It's a pleasure to have you again on Real Talk with Kike today. Are you there, ma'am?
Good afternoon.
Excellent afternoon. I'm so happy to have you again today on my platform. Let's just dive straight to the topic at hand, because under the umbrella of the NLC, you have demanded 794,000 as the new national minimum wage, for workers in the Southwest. And everyone understands that there's a glaring inflation in the economy today. How was this figure determined, and what impact will it have been on workers in the region?
During the sitting in the geopolitical zones, that's the tripartite committee, sitting at all the geopolitical zones, we were asked to make presentation as to what we feel should be the minimum wage. So we added our own peculiarity, the peculiarity of Lagos State and the Southwest geopolitical zones. And we arrived at 794,000 naira through some indices that I am going to explain. We put into consideration a family of 6, comprising the father, the mother, and 4 children. And with the economic reality on ground now, we look at the feeding as the first thing. We look at in the 3 meal in a day, the breakfast, the lunch, and the dinner. And we narrow it down to each of the members of this family spending 1,000 naira each on any of this meal. Breakfast, father 1,000, mother 1,000, and the children too. And lunch. If you have to look at it now, we went to do our own survey, and we noted that if you want to buy a cooked rice, a scoop of a spoon of a cooked rice now is 500 naira. So if you are having 2 scoops of the rice, that is 1,000 naira. We are not even putting into consideration the protein that should go with it. But we said, let us just reduce it to 1,000 naira. So that is 3,000 naira per person on daily basis. And for the 30 days or 31 days, at least they must have a meal. So we also still reduce the days to 30 days, not even thinking of the extra days. So if you have to add 3,000 naira per person times 6, that's for the family of 4, father, mother added, making 6,000 naira times 3 for breakfast, 6,000. So that is times 6 now, making 18,000. So if you have to multiply 18,000 times 30 days, that is about 540 something thousand naira. I cannot readily say what is after that, but it's a little more than 500,000 naira. So when we want to talk about transportation, at least father will be going to place of work, mother to probably working, maybe civil servant, even if she's working in the private sector or she's even in the market, I have to transport to and fro the places of work, even the children when they are going to school. So we only narrow that one down to 44,000 naira in a month. We did not even put all of them into the focus for transportation. We talk about rent. If you have to add 44,000 to 542,000 naira, that is almost 600,000. When we talk about the rent in Lagos State, unless you are living in a very rural place, if you are working in the center or VI or anywhere, and you are staying in the urban setting, there is nobody that does not know that Lagos is a city. So for rentage in Lagos State, if you are renting a house like 3-bedroom flat, you should be ready to part like 2.5 million naira, 2 million naira within and around Ikeja, Ogba. If you are now even want to stay in somewhere like Victoria Island, Lekki, three-bedroom flat, you should be ready to part like 5 million naira, 7 million naira. If you are renting house around Aja, and in fact after Lekki, it's the same story of three-bedroom flat, you are spending like 2.5 million, 3 million. So if you have to divide that in 12 months, 12 months in a year, that means you'll be paying like 300,000 naira to 250,000 naira every month in Lagos State on three-bedroom flat. So if you now add like 200,000 or 300,000 to almost 600,000 that you have, is also almost 800,000. That brought us, we did not even put into consideration other social economic factor like you want to go to church, you want to join Ashwebi, you still want to do some other things in your community, you want to pay for security, the light is there, you want to pay for other infrastructural facilities that you enjoy, like you want to pay for water. We didn't put that. So that was how we were able to arrive at 794,000. But that is why we have a committee that will talk, sit down, discuss, and negotiate. So we are open to negotiation. It's the proposition that this is what we should be. Normally, this is what we should be spending that will give us a very comfortable living wage. But if government is saying that, yeah, we know this is what you should be earning, but we can't also afford it. Employers of Lagos say we can't afford it. What do you think is the best for the workers? Who lays the golden egg? Let us sit down and negotiate and discuss and see all the indices and the factors and arrive at a conclusion and give the people a living wage. That was all we have proposed to the government.
Many thanks for that elaborate breakdown with your insights regarding how you arrived at 794,000 naira in a month, for workers, with a breakdown of 540 for transportation for a family of for a family of 6, which you've given us the breakdown. And of course, when it comes to the feeding, when it comes to transportation, like I said earlier, and of course rent. But putting all of that aside, NLC President Joe Ajero suggested a minimum wage of 1 million naira, citing inflation and currency depreciation. And I must ask you, how realistic is this demand? What challenges might it pose for the government and private sector? What are the indications or indicators that made the NLC convinced that the federal government can afford such amount of money when it comes to him suggesting 1 million naira?
Yes, thank you very much. That was also a proposal, from the NLC as a general yardstick for the minimum wage, so as a standard. And then when the president of NLC came up and the NLC national, when they came up with that proposal of 1 million naira, dollar was close to 2,000 naira to naira, 2,000 to a dollar. So, and you know that our life is been everything about our life and our livelihood in Nigeria is being achievable through dollars. Even somebody that is farming in Nigeria now, the produce and the price of every goods and services has escalated, and they will also equate it to the dollar rate. So since our the determination or the determinant of our economy is the dollar rate, so we also look at it and look at all the situations like the NEPA bill now. Before, if you buy 10,000 naira, you will have like 133 kilowatts. Now that has been reduced to about 44. So if you want to buy the NEPA rate that will be sufficient for you throughout the whole month, that has tripled the money. So that is being considered. Then with all those indices that are also the parameters that we used to calculate 794, It's the same parameter that was used to calculate the 1 million naira. I told you that we have to remove some things from there. But when in totality, you don't remove and you just want to bear it as it is, it will even be more than 1 million naira. With immediate after the subsidy removal, we have seen the prices of goods and services has increased drastically. So it is still the same yardstick that was used, that okay, if the price of a bag of rice is now 80 something thousand naira, if a family must eat a bag of rice, I must have protein, I must travel around from the places of their work, they must pay for housing, they must do other socio-economic factors into their daily activities, it must come to 1 million. But as at yesterday, the NSC and TUC, they have been able to agree and synchronize their position together and coming up with 615,000 naira. How did they achieve that? It is still also the value of our currency, since the rate of dollar has already dropped down, even though the inflation rate has increased. But government has already told us that with the reducing in the dollar rate, the inflation cannot just come down and drop instantly like that. It will take a little while before we start seeing the positive result of the drop in the dollar rate. So we are anxiously waiting for the inflation to come down. The rate of the inflation has risen to almost 34%, and this is the highest we have ever witnessed for many years. And this inflation rate also affected our own purchasing, we affect our purchasing power, and we also affect the earnings. So that was why the NSC has to propose that 1 million naira as at that time. But now the NSC and TUC, they've been able to come up with the same position of 615,000. But like I said earlier on, we still have a tripartite committee where the employers of labor in the private sector, the employers of labor in the public sector, that is the government, and also the representative of the workers, which is the labor. The three of them will sit down and examine what could be best achievable at this time. If you have to look at it in 2019, what labor proposed was not what we got. At the end of the day, we were giving 30,000 naira, even though grudgingly, we took it at that time. But the same story cannot be said of today. The purchasing power and the currency, the rate of currency as at then is not what we are witnessing now. And also the inflation rate then with what is happening now is not the same thing. So that is why the two labor centers, NLC and TUC, had made that position. So let them sit down, all those that are concerned, let them make use of available indices, and then let them give us a reasonable living wage. And that is what we are expecting.
Thanks for giving me that elaborate submission, and thank you for including the NLC and the TUC in terms of the proposed benchmark of the figure in terms of 615 or 715. I think it's between 615 and 715, which I heard Adejumo in an interview recently, I think this morning. But putting that aside, let me tailor down this interview to you, because you in an interview in Lagos described Mr. Sanwo-Olu as the father figure to workers because of welfare concern. And this governor in 2022 donated more than 10 acres of land to labor, including NLC and Trade Union Congress, to build affordable houses through funding from the Federal Mortgage Bank for those who are contributing through the National Housing Fund. Now I must ask, how well is the state government following through with this promise?
Thank you very much. Like you rightly said, in 2022, Mr. Governor gave us a gift of 5 hectares of land at Idera scheme, and another 5 hectares at Badagry Topo Idale scheme. making 10 hectares for the workers' housing. Not only that, he gifted us a plot of lands at the Central Business District area. He gave NLC and TUC to build our secretariat as well. Okay, some few days before the Workers' Day, we met with Mr. Governor because we've been having difficulties in getting developers. The labor does not have money, to go into a large scale um, building of our secretariat. And the landed property that was gifted to us at the Central Business District, we don't just want to waste it by putting up a shallow or shabby building for our secretariat. We want to make use of that opportunity and have something that is befitting and much more. So Mr. Governor has promised us to help us get, we made the proposal to him to help us get some of those builders and developers that are known and registered with the state government with the capacity to give us something like high-rising buildings as our secretariat, so that we could also use it to also make some propositions for the union. Yeah, back to the hectares of lands that were donated to put up a workers' village. We have approached the Federal Mortgage Bank, and also we have approached, identified some developers that were registered and named by the Federal Mortgage Bank, that were registered with them. Because Federal Mortgage Bank will not have anything to do with any developer without being their subscribers, or without registering with them as their developers. So some of them that we approached before, when they got to see the landed properties that were gifted us, they backed out of the whole total arrangement because I feel they don't have the capacity with what we are, looking at. We are looking at a major and massive outlet there, housing, infrastructural facilities for our members. Like in that Tidera axis, we are looking at more than 1,000 flats, and also the same thing at Topo Dale. Some of them are claiming that it's a machi land, is a swampy area, which land is dry land in Lagos. Lagos is below the sea level, and there is no place that you want to build in Lagos. That most of our land, at least I could say that 80% of Lagos land, you have to sandfill. But once they begin to give excuses, that means that they don't have the capacity. Right now, we are talking with some other developers, and I'm using these opportunities and open invitations to developers that feels they have the large capacity to get in touch with us. The only criteria is that register with a Federal Mortgage Bank and then have the financial muscle or the capacity, or it's a Federal Mortgage Bank that is going to provide like more than 70% of the funding. The only part that we are going to do is a 10% equity for those who are going to subscribe as an off-takers. 10% equity of whatever is going to cost. But because the landed property in that area is very expensive, but same as we gifted to us as free, we are not even paying any premium on those lands. Government is not going to collect anything on a CFO, and the CFO is already issued, is ready. So we use this as an open invitation to developers to get in touch with us if you know you have the capacity to join with us to develop these landed properties and this project in the next 1 year for our members.
Many
So that is the situation where we are now. Government has gifted us hectares of land, but they don't have the money to build it for us.
Okay,
They ask us that our members are contributors to NHF, National Housing Fund, go to Federal Mortgage Bank, and that is what we've been doing. Even today, we've discussed with Federal Mortgage Bank. We now have one of the developer, Reftalk, that we are talking with, but we still need some of them again. Let us, compare and then see the best developer that is good for us to hand over this massive project to, so that could give us affordable housing for our members.
All right,
Thank you.
many thanks again for that elaborate submission, but maybe this might be time for you to, come to fore with different strategies, knowing that quite a number of this finance organization are having challenges with your proposal. But putting that aside, from the federal level, there has always been a deadlock between the federal government and the NLC, and it may not disappear. If I'm going to be real on this platform, it may not disappear forever because grounds are not always being met. President Bola Ahmed Tinubu assures workers that issues preventing the consensus on minimum wage will be resolved soon. How do you think that can be achieved? That's my first question. My second question again is the fact that how do the Senate President and members of the National Assembly plan to support workers' demand for better wages and working conditions? You and I know what, because the reason why I'm saying you and I know is the fact that the legislative measures are being considered to address labor issues effectively. What's your take thus far with these two questions?
I think the legislative arm, that we have the three arms of government, the executive, the legislative, and judiciary. At this moment and every time, we require that these three arms of government, they should work together to give us the dividends of democracy, and also to be fair in their judgment and in their policies to Nigerians, not only to the workers, but to Nigerians. Whatever the executive arm of government is going to do, they are interrelated. The work of each of these arm is very interrelated. But where you have seen where the one arm of the government, like the legislative arm of the government, their own salary is not captured in the salaries, RMFA, the salaries of Nigerians generally. In the developed countries in abroad, the salaries of even their legislatures there is captured as the same way they capture the salary of the other workers. But in Nigeria, the legislators, they earn even far and above what a professor will earn in a year, in a month. The salary of a professor put together is what a legislator will earn in a month. And so we look at it that the legislative arm in this government, they are not actually working for the people. They only pretend that they are for the people, and they don't have the interest of the people at heart. Like this one, there has been a dilly-dally. Okay, for the tripartite committee, on the side of the government and on the side of the labor and the employer, there should be no rigidity. There should be a little of flexibility, so that when you drag it this length to this side, then you should be able to come to a center, and you should be able to come to a good conclusion. Not on the side of the government or the employer, that they will maintain a stiff face that this is what we could afford, when it will be known to everybody that you could do better than that. And also on the side of labor, it will do us well to also look at the situation with most of the companies around now, that are they actually doing well? Are they, healthy? Are they making so much that they could afford this? Since the determination of our minimum wage is not only to those in the public sector, what of those in the private sector? We have to put them into consideration. And that is why we need the legislation. Legislation must make laws that will make companies to be able to have a marginal interest, marginal gains, that will also afford them the opportunity of being able to take care of all their own responsibility as well. Some of the laws in the country are still necking to the companies, that at the same time we are still asking to come and take care of the welfare of the workers that they employed. Are we talking about infrastructural facilities? How much of the infrastructural facilities they need to make the company to yield dividend that they have? Most of them run on diesel, and we know how much they procure diesel. And this is what is eating deep into their gain or the interest that they make in their company. Are we talking about the road networks? Some of the oil companies that they have to distribute oils around and across the whole country, The vehicles we have to tumble or pour the fuel on the way. And this is a major loss to this company because of the road network. The roads are bad and in terrible shape. And we talk about so many other things. We could go on and talk about all these indices. So the legislative arm that makes law, they should make law, and also this law should also be applicable to them. Not do as I say. They should do the law that will also involve them, that will make that do as I do.
Apologies, ma'am. Apologies if you can hear me. I apologize. I have to interrupt your line of thought. I have to go on a quick break now to get a word from my sponsors. And when I return, the conversation will continue. Stay with me. I'll be right back. This is Real Talk with Kike. All right, glad to know you're still right there with us. In case you just joined the show, today's conversation is about the plight and the situations of workers in Nigeria, particularly after the Celebration Workers' Day yesterday. And the discussion revolves around the demand for higher minimum wage, or wages rather, by Nigerian workers, with President Bola Ahmed Tinubu assuring resolution of issues, and labor unions set a deadline for negotiation, while state governors promise wage increases, and of course the legislators pledge support for workers' welfare. And challenges like fuel scarcity and electricity tariff hikes are highlighted as well, and governors emphasize that job creation and improved condition will be looked into. My guest today, Comrade Funmi Sessi, has been the one giving real talk on all these issues that I've just highlighted now. And again, I must say many thanks to the NLC chairman, Funmi Sessi, for all that you've shared thus far. Again, let me use this opportunity to open the phone lines, and to those who want to contribute on this show. I'm not talking about family members and egbons that are messaging me, but I'm talking about, viewers who want their plight to change. I'm talking about those who want to contribute on the live show today. Remember that the studio number is 0811-8888-113, showing on your screen right now. It's been changed. Let me use this opportunity to put that out there, that the calling number have been changed. And again, we're streaming live on Real Talk with Kike platform and on Silverbird platform on Facebook. Ma'am, let me come to you quickly because we are pressed for time. Again, many thanks for all your contribution thus far. What are the expectations of labor unions like the NLC and the 2UC regarding the implementation of a new minimum wage? Because quite frankly, some workers or people think you, the executive committee members and stakeholders, will attend closed door meetings and then you call off the strike. You know that this impression has been on for a while. Are you managing the expectation of the workers?
Thank you very much. Yes, we provide leadership for people, but different people with different opinions. So like I said earlier on, we should not be stiff-necked while making decisions. We should give room for negotiations. And once, most of the time, the language that the government understand is the last resort that we use, and which is strike actions. So we don't like to use the strike action first. We keep it and we use it as a last resort. So to press on for our demands. And once we, make that threat, government will start to run helter-skelter. And from there, if government has been foot dragging in having a reasoning or in coming to a dialogue or sit down and discuss and get what is due for the people, for them, when we issue our statements or press release that we go on strike, we ensure that we bring the government to their knee. And when that happens, definitely, we don't have an option to sit down and dialogue with government or the employers of labor. And then with whatever outcome of our dialogue, we bring it out to the workers. And once they've been able to meet up with our demands, we will call off the strike actions. But to some people, some people who have asked to grind with government, or some people who have one or two grievances with them, they will want to hide behind labor to use us to perpetrate their own grievances against government, and that is the one that we say no to. So we won't be used as a tool for any politician, for any opposition, or for anyone that feel that they have an axe. Let them use their own platform if they have any.
All right. Yeah, I hear you, ma'am. I hear you, ma'am. And yes, you want them to use their platform, but there has been disparity among states and what they can afford based on budgetary concerns. E.g., Governor Obaseki of Edo State has said the 70,000 naira, an increase of over 75% in terms of the new minimum wage for workers, was within what his administration could afford. Nothing that the increase became necessary as a result of the current economic realities from 40,000 naira to 70,000 naira. And this disparity among states could trigger more challenges. If you ask me, let's keep it real on this platform. How is the NLC addressing that internally? That's my first question, and this will be my last question as well because of time. Another example that I would like to bring to fall is Governor Abiodun, who made it known during this year 2024 Workers' Day celebration that his administration had paid a total of 128.3 billion naira as pensions and gratitude to both local and state government retirees in the states. Again, I'm asking, how do we place that in the scheme of things with all that is going on right now?
I think what Obaseki has done in Edo State is an aberration. You cannot bail a cat before the cat. So what I'm saying in essence is that there is a tripartite committee. We ran a federation state in this country. So, and the center is still the federal government. And we have a minimum for all the workers, either in the private sector or in the public sector. And they are already in talks. The tripartite committee is already in talk as to give the workers in whatever state you are, the minimum. The federal government will bring about the minimum. Any states that want to do better than that, you can do above that. But whatever the tripartite committee agrees on will be the minimum. So he is already preempting that committee and is already bringing out that this is what he could afford. That was very wrong on his own part. If he's tired of giving good governance to the people who voted him into the office, he should tender his letter of resignation. He should not start by dividing the workers' interest and the country in general. So he should wait for the tripartite committee. If he maintains that this is an increase in their salaries, another thing. Last year in January, the governor of Lagos State gave as a gift 20% increase into the workers' salary because he noted that the economic situation of the country, as at then the inflation rate is already eating deep into the salaries of the worker, most especially the city workers in Lagos State. And he gifted 20% to the salaries of the workers. Even though we are still asking Mr. Governor, those in the tertiary institution, they left them out of that gift. But others in the mainstream of the public work in Lagos State, they have started enjoying that since last year, January. Another one he did is the 35,000 naira wage award. He implemented it fully. But some state government, they negotiated like Ogun State. Ogun State governor is not paying the 35,000 wage award. He reduced it downwards. And the same thing could be said about Oyo State. They are not paying the 35,000 naira wage award. They reduced it. But in Lagos State, the governor appreciated the workers who have been very consistent, and they have been partners in progress with him. Right. So he implemented it, and he also told us that he's ready for the tripartite committee's
all right, many thanks, Comrade Funmi Sessi, for all your submission thus far. This is where I have to, quickly move to the last segment of the show, and which I call trending stories. These are stories that bind us as Nigerians and as Africa, that affect us all, and where I would say that I have a right to air my own opinion. And my first trending story today is that of the Coastal Highway project. That's a landmark 6-year investment that was demolished in 6 hours. And quickly, let me say this, you know, the demolition of the landmark beach for the Lagos-Calabar Coastal Highway has stirred a lot of controversy online, and this story is just two-sided for me. One for the government and one for the owners of landmark beach resorts. And I've read and listened to the argument from those against the demolition. Truly, it brings economic hardship. I must stay real on this issue at hand, because when it comes to the livelihood that have been lost, and of course the tourism declines, you know, memories tied to this beach are erased, if you ask me, and the environmental concerns as well has been arised, you know. So some question that the project, you know, is necessary or necessity given to Nigerian pressing needs for basic necessity. I'm sure if I had a representative, you know, for the government on this platform today, they would argue clearly with facts and evidences why the place should have been demolished, since I don't have a state rep or members of the project involved in this term of construction or plan or allocation or governmental consideration, whatever they call it. I may not be doing justice or giving a balanced perspective, but not bringing emotions to the conversation at hand. One thing is clear: Lagos State makes money from the beach resorts, and I want to believe that they pay their taxes. Even beyond that, I believe that they legally acquired their documentation from the Oniru family, hence those questions that that they brought to fore. So what comes to fore now is the weight of benefit and the cost for both government and the landowners. The back and forth, you know, some things shouldn't be certain that there has been certain considerable compensation from the state government to the owners of landmark beach resorts, and they should be ready to support a relocation with ease of doing business for them should the owners want to re-establish their businesses along the the coastal line of Lekki-Epe Expressway when it's done. You know, I'm trying to just, you know, hold my thought on this, but quickly let me come to you, Ma, in 1 minute, because we are pressed for time. What's your submission on this story thus far?
Well, we have had different stories on that demolition that is to take place, but let us look at the economic gain of that project when it comes to life. And if absolutely the landmark has the CFO, let him press for compensation, let him be so compensated, and let the business, as he's also providing a source of livelihood for many Nigerians who are dependent of doing businesses and feeding their family through that, let them be so compensated. But since it's on the right of way, and the construction of the road network, we also open the coastal city to more economic gains. Let the work also, be supported. But let it be a win-win situation for everybody on the other side. There should be no loss on the other side. We should look at what is the general interest. The general interest should be the one that majority will make a gain. Somebody make a submission. There is also one person that owns a peculiar beach front like that, one Bolaji. So if anybody is coming to talk about, ethnicity, a Yoruba person is also affected in that. And he has agreed that his business will just represent 0.01% of what the project will give to other Nigerians when it is completed. So don't let us attribute it to ethnic problems or to other issues. Let the government do the needful, and let them make on the two sides, let there be mutual agreement into what will be the end of the whole submission. That is what I could say about it.
For that, quickly on the second trending story, which will be my last trending or my last conversation on the trending that affects us all, is the Lagos State government that discovers 86 rooms under the bridge. And this is one of the stories that gets me saying wonders shall never end. The fact that room apartments can be hidden in a plain public site is another marvel for me. Before I go into what the consequences should be or could be, I'm asking those involved that could this have led you to renting rooms at the rate of $250 under the highway bridge? I watched the video back to back, and so many perspectives were coming to thoughts. You know, people can be so unbelievable. I want to first ask the Ministry of Environment why they are just detecting this. I'm sure for those under the bridge, you know, tenants under this bridge, that they've paid a year fee, they would have been there for months. While I want to applaud them for discovering this, I also want to call them out to intensify their works across all areas of the state. Another pointer for me is the fact that the state is not checkmating influx of people into the state. Every Tom, Dick, and Harry will leave their north, their east, the west, south, and come to Lagos to settle with no plan of preparation. We are from Lagos State, sometimes I wonder, should there be some level of checkmating that we need to bring to fall, because everybody wants to be in Lagos. Then after being frustrated of not getting it right or making money in Lagos, they resort to crime like robbery, thuggery, name it, and give we the Lagosians unnecessary names that is not ours. I want to believe that these people come from other states. I'm not against migration. I must bring that to fall within Nigeria, but do so with sense and correctness is what I'm bringing now. Now, going into consequences. These are not the set of people who, obviously, if you ask me, set commodities in traffic. I want to believe. Why on earth will you live under the bridge? I'm asking again in pain. It doesn't really make sense to me. This bridge at Dolphin Estates, I believe, other bridges leads to Third Mainland Bridge, which is a continual examination being repaired to meet up with integrity. Why, I don't even know what to say again. Why if this bridge is even collapses? Imagine if this bridge collapses. It is still Lagos State, everybody will be crying and be shouting all over. Do people think at all? Is also what I'm bringing to fore. If you can afford $250K for rent under the bridge, I'm sure it will cost way less for you to rent a decent apartment in other states or wherever you are coming from, for goodness sake. Must you live and also in Lagos? Is also what I'm asking. The astonishing part of it for me is the fact that some of these people will begin after a long while, bear children, raise family under these bridges. How many more of this kind of nonsense, for lack of a better word, are elsewhere across the states? The Ministry of Environment needs to intensify their work in this area. And as a Lagosian, I feel it's a no-no, because that is the reason why we see all sorts of people from Ogun State, from Oyo State, from whatever. Everybody wants to come to Lagos to come and hustle. Can you do that with a lot of correctness in your head is also what I'm asking. Unfortunately, I don't know if I have time where you can actually draw, or we cannot. I'm so sorry. This is where I draw the curtains of the show. Till I come your way next week, remember to be kind to one another. But many thanks to my resourceful guest, Comrade Funmi, Sessi, for all that you've shared thus far, for throwing light on the issue at hand. We pray that the whole federation, the Nigeria, will be a better place for workers moving forward. And it will not be a culture of all just having talk shop every year. Many thanks again for doing this with me.